Hi there guys, just some ordinary dude here, and today I am joined by a fellow member of the Loud House fandom who is going by the name of Ocean. How are you today?
Doing good.
Okay, that's great. And today we're going to talk about, the Loud House fandom as a whole, all the different aspects of it. Just I'll let you start this one off because you have quite a few thoughts you want to say about it. So what's your take on the Loud House fan base overall?
Overall,
Well, yeah, just however you want to start.
well, a lot of people would say that it's like not the greatest fandom, and I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen exactly what they're talking about. I mean, I've kept myself limited to like two places so far, but I'm really not seeing the Loud House fandom that's everyone's complaining about.
Well, to be fair, it's more a case of I think most fandoms are like the Loud House fandom. Like when people say, "Oh, there's so much drama and unreasonable opinions and arguing and toxic fan art and hatred and porn and weird stuff like that," it's like most fandoms have this. It's not.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look at like Ben 10. How many fucking people ship Ben with his cousin? I mean, that's just ridiculous. But yet, Loud House is apparently so much worse.
It's probably because of the characters, their children.
Yeah, I suppose. But I mean, to be fair, as much as flack as I do give the Loud House fandom sometimes, there is nothing especially bad about it compared to other fandoms. I've been in other fandoms before in my time, and most of them can be just as bad.
Like, to me, the Loud House fandom, it barely stands out from the rest of the fandoms. Like, I've been in a few others. I think one I want to bring up today is, for right now, is the Sonic fandom.
Oh, that is well known for having a lot of bad stuff. Which one of them is worse is very, debatable. But it's not like the Sonic fandom is leaps and bounds better than the Loud House fandom, and that's just one notable example.
It's not really any fandom for a kids show. Well, the demographic is kids, so it's not going to be a good place to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, well, I did try asking that one time on the wiki what everyone's age was, and you said that wasn't allowed. But I'm actually interested to know how old are people in this fan base. It'll be interesting for me to know.
It's not allowed, but I'd say most of the people you interact with on a regular basis are like teenagers.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I did speak with Mia quite recently on this podcast, and she's only 15. She's almost half my age, which is, I'm getting...
How old are you?
I'm 29. I'm nearly 30, and I'm like, next year I'm going to be like Joey from Friends. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I still get asked for ID sometimes, but that's another thing. But basically, yeah. So with the Loud House fandom, it's one of those things. There are a lot of like really good people in it. I mean, if there weren't, I would have left a long time ago. Because sometimes, as you know, I get really frustrated with it.
Yeah.
But there are some like genuinely decent people among it. This is where I do sort of differ a bit, because Fictional Media Bully, his opinion is very much that like 99.9% of the Loud House fandom is terrible, and I see where he's coming from, but I wouldn't go that far. There are some redeemable aspects of it. It's just almost just the fact that it's like drama can start at the drop of a hat, like especially in the fandom wiki, as you know.
Yes. Yeah, I've been there.
I'm always trying to stop it, but it never seems to work. I seem to instigate it as much as anything these days because my patience has just weared thin over the years. I used to be so good at controlling that. But
well, the fandom isn't as small as it used to be, I guess.
Well, the fandom... It's
not as easily controllable now.
Well, the fandom's, I'd say, smaller now, if I'm honest. It's very inactive. There's not that many people compared to what there used to be. The Loud House was a lot bigger, I'd say, like back in 2017 or something.
Actually, yeah, you're right. It was a lot bigger in the early
phase. It's kind of a shame, really. I don't think the series ever quite reached its full potential, but then again, there's always a chance for a reboot. I'm hoping for a reboot. I know people don't like reboots because most of them are cynical crash grabs like the Powerpuff Girls reboot and all that. But there are some genuinely great ones, like DuckTales 2017. Better than the original in every way, and had a great story and set of characters.
I feel like over time, those good reboots become rarer.
Yeah, it's because most people, when they bring back the reboots, it's because they just want it for the money. But if someone has a genuinely great idea and really wants to do something with the franchise, then that's a different story. It just depends why you're doing a reboot. That's the thing.
The thing is, though, great ideas are kind of running out. The show doesn't even have any right now.
There are tons of great ideas. It's just look, this is something we'll probably get to in the next podcast segment we're doing. But the show, in terms of like its technical aspects, is probably better now than it's ever been. It really is its creative direction. That's the main flaw it's got. I will agree with that to some extent. In fact, we'll talk about that in the next segment. But yeah, going back to the fandom. Obviously, yeah, I think it's the fact that there's a lot of drama going on over the silliest of things. Like, there was one literally the other day about the guy who made a lot of those weird posts, and it was a big argument. And that's just one of many examples. I tried to stay out of that one because I've just had enough of it all, you know what I mean? But, yeah.
I mean, that's probably the better choice because that particular individual has been going on for like a year.
Yeah.
It gets tiring.
It is what it is, but I mean, he still does occasionally message me about some things. I mean, I'm relatively friendly to the guy. I mean, he does have some weird things he's into, but then again, so do most fans. That's pretty obvious. But yeah, I mean, it's just the fact there's so much drama. There's such a dark side to it. It's like it probably is the case that it's a minority of people who are genuinely bad within the fandom. But of course, those minorities are usually the loudest, so they stick out the most, and that's the reputation the whole gets.
Yeah, it's very easy for an outsider to the fandom to look at the worst people possible and then say that's the entire fandom.
And then,
it's reasons like that I stopped making generalizations about any fandom at all, and I try to get people to avoid those. Even fictional media bully, where it makes sense, I always I want him to stop being like the entire fandom sucks, because it doesn't, and that's fallacious to say.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I am slowly getting to turn around to at least a few people in the fandom, but, you know, I think maybe these podcasts might help to a point if I could get a few more people on it, because I think when you just communicate with people in the comments, it's easy to misinterpret what somebody's saying, or you get the wrong idea. When you're actually talking to them like this, with your actual voices, I think it's easier to sort of understand each other, relate to each other, sort of get an idea of what you're really thinking and what you're really meaning, and just. I think it's better this way to sort of understand. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this. I do want to sort of understand certain people in the fandom a bit better and sort of say, right, I get where you're coming from with this, and I can do so in a way that interacting in a comments discussion section never really would achieve. And maybe I could get fictional media bully to see that, look, there are some genuinely good people in this fan base. I know they're overshadowed by a lot of the bad ones. I know he's had a lot of he's quite abrasive, I will admit. I understand why, but I know him in person quite well at this point, so we have actually met, which I think he told you about. Yeah, and that was interesting. We both live in the UK, so we're a few hours apart. I'm in the middle of the country and he's down south. But we did meet when I went on sort of a little road trip. It was a fun day, actually. But he's not what you think he is. I'll tell you this much now. He comes across as very sort of abrasive online. He's a total cream puff in real life. I'll tell you that much for nothing. Really adorable. But yeah, he's all right. Really, it's just he's one of those people you got to get to know a bit better. Then again, I suppose I am becoming a bit more like him these days. But there you go.
Yeah. I think with people you have to get to know, there has to be a reason to want to know them, and it's kind of hard to find that sometimes.
Well, it's weird, like your relationship with him. It's a weird one. 1 minute you two are interacting like you're the best of friends and having like a perfectly good conversation, and the next minute you're arguing about something. And I've never really. It's always been a bit weird. Whenever I ask either of you, you're like, "Oh, I don't really take the other one seriously," and I'm like, "Okay." It's a bit of a weird dynamic you two have there.
That's because, like, I don't know. I try to interact nicely, but if he says anything negative, I just don't care.
It is one of those. I mean, I guess the thing is with the fandom in general, like we say, it's there's nothing that sticks out about it. But I think it's just the fact that. And here's another thing: we get so many of these videos from big name YouTubers. You know the ones: Cartoon She, Mr. Enter, LS Mark most recently, and they're big names with a big influence. Yeah, you get your LS Mark videos and stuff like that, and I think that has an even bigger effect on just the public perception of our fan base. And because of this like influence making everyone think that the fan base is bad, it also has a negative impact on the franchise, because if everyone thinks the fan base is bad, it's going to make people reluctant to check the show out. And it's like the show has enough things working against it as it is, if I'm perfectly honest. And, you know, it's such a shame because the Loud House, honestly, as much as people bash on it, we're having a few cut-off issues, but it doesn't matter. Basically, yeah, I think there's a lot of public perception against the fandom, and it kind of sucks because it is affecting the show.
How would you say it's affecting the show?
Well, again, it's going to make outsiders even more reluctant to check it out. Because again, if they're not going to want to involve themselves with a fandom, they think that fandom is exceptionally terrible, and that's the dominant narrative that's being broadcast out there, which kind of sucks, to be honest. Because yeah,
It's kind of an issue that like creates itself, I guess, in a sense.
yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where could the Loud House have any more things working against its success? Now it needs to have everyone bashing the fan base and making it sound absolutely awful. It's like it seems to get the Loud House seems to get every bit of mud slung its way to the show itself, to its staff, to its fans, and it's like everyone just has this really bad opinion of it, and it's like, oh, for God's sake, you know.
I don't even know what the show itself did to actually deserve this. How did it get this fandom, and more still, how did it get this hatedom?
How did it get this hatedom?
Yeah,
One word:
like,
Cartoon She.
how did people?
Well, actually, no, not just him. There's also Chris Savino, No Such Luck, Brawl in the Family, those things.
Well, yeah, Chris Savino definitely played a part in it.
Yeah.
Never a very good director, but
No.
To
be honest, Chris Savino, if you actually look at his body of work before the Loud House, he was best known for dragging the Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab into the ground during their degradation periods right at the end.
Yeah, not very.
Yeah, and even in the Loud House, he was involved in a lot of the weaker episodes of the earlier seasons. And yet, oddly enough, he was the main guy who made Space Invader one of the absolute best episodes of the show, which is just, I don't know how he pulled that one out, but there you go. I imagine Carlos Sachs of Shropshire had more to do with that than anything, despite what the credits say.
Maybe there are other people there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. With these episodes, only a few people get credited, but really there's dozens, if not hundreds, of people involved in the making of every episode in multiple departments. So, yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, Chris Savino did not help. The infamous No Such Luck and Brawl in the Family, they really didn't help. And now you've got YouTubers also adding fuel to the fire, and it's like, ugh. Remember when this show was predicted to become bigger than SpongeBob? Like, what happened to
Well,
that? Now every year it's losing miserably in the KCAs to it, and it's like, oh.
I don't think any show would ever beat KCA's in the. Fuck.
Avatar beat SpongeBob in the KCAs back in the late 2000s. Just want to point that out.
I mean, Avatar was on another level.
I want the Loud House to be on that level. It has the potential. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
I don't know, man. And people just hate the show when it's, like, at worst, mediocre.
It's better than mediocre. It gets a lot more flack than it deserves.
It's mediocre at its worst.
Yeah.
The show overall.
Yeah, the show overall is very good, if not great. It just has some issues, and I also don't subscribe to this idea that one era of the show is better than another. A lot of people tend to think one way or the other, and I'm like, no. The earlier seasons were great, but they had their fair share of problems. They got rid of them around season 3, which was when it was at its absolute peak, and then it developed some new ones over time. But I wouldn't necessarily say that the new seasons are weaker than like season 1 or anything. Season 1 had a lot of problems as well. Just different ones.
And I'd be interested in finding out why a lot of people feel that way about, like, season 4 onwards. I don't even remember.
It's the creative direction. It's because I think people are angry that the show isn't focusing on, like, the story ideas or characters that they're most interested in. There's a lot of focus on people like Flip and Scoots and Lincoln's friends and the Morticians and Cheryl and Meryl, and some of these are good characters, but obviously there's not as much focus on, like, the main family as there used to be, and also there are some things like that really should have been done years ago that still haven't been done. Why does Luna have no personality traits outside of just being into music? Why can't they use Lynn's toughness for more positive acts, etc., etc.? I think that's the thing. His creative priorities aren't quite the best at times. But again, going back to the fandom, I think we'll wrap it up because we're probably over 15 minutes now. Basically, it's not great, but is it overhated? Probably. Are people a bit harsh? Yes. Does it really stand out as a particularly bad fandom? Absolutely not. Most fandoms have the same problems. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so we'll end that podcast segment there, and we'll see you guys next time.